Her boss flirted with my girlfriend right in front of me. She chose him without hesitation. Minutes later, he learned exactly who I was. The conference room smelled like stale coffee, polished leather, and corporate ambition. I sat in the back corner with my laptop open, pretending to work through quarterly reports, while my girlfriend Melissa Torres stood at the front of the room and presented to the executive team. She looked confident in her navy blazer and heels, moving through each slide of her marketing strategy for the new product launch, like she belonged there. I had driven her to the meeting because her car was in the shop, and I told her I would just wait in the back and catch up on emails until she was done. That was when her boss, Brandon Mitchell, leaned back in his leather chair and interrupted her in the middle of a sentence. "Melissa, this is excellent work," he said. His voice had that particular tone certain successful men use when they are about to cross a line and want everyone in the room to pretend they cannot see it. "You have really gone above and beyond," he continued. "I would like to discuss your future with the company over dinner tonight." The room went quiet. Melissa's face lit up with that eager-to-please smile she always wore around upper management. "I'd love that," she said without even hesitating. "Excellent," Brandon replied. "How about Luminaire at 8 o'clock? I'll make a reservation." Then Brandon looked directly at me. Not a quick glance, not accidental eye contact. A deliberate, steady look. The kind of look that said everything without him having to speak another word. He knew exactly who I was. He knew I was Melissa's boyfriend, and he did not care. I stayed silent. Melissa did not even look in my direction. She did not acknowledge that I was in the room. She did not say she already had plans with her boyfriend. She did not even pause before agreeing to dinner with her married boss at the most expensive restaurant in the city. "Perfect," Brandon said, still looking at me. "Wear something nice. Luminaire has a dress code." The meeting ended 10 minutes later. Melissa packed up her materials while chatting with her coworkers about how well the presentation had gone. I closed my laptop and waited by the door. "That went amazing," she said when she finally walked over to me. "Did you see how engaged everyone was?" "I saw," I replied evenly. She did not mention the dinner. She did not explain it. She did not apologize. She did not even seem to register that anything inappropriate had just happened. We walked to my car in silence. Melissa scrolled through her phone the entire way, probably already thinking about what she would wear that night for dinner with the boss, who had asked her out while staring me straight in the eye. So I said as I started the engine, "Dinner tonight?" "Oh yeah." Melissa waved one hand like it was nothing. "Brandon wants to talk about my career trajectory. This is huge, Connor. He doesn't take just anyone to Luminaire." My name is Connor Hayes. I am 34 years old, and until 3 months ago, nobody outside my immediate family knew who I really was. I preferred it that way. It made life less complicated. "Does Brandon know you have a boyfriend?" I asked calmly. Melissa looked at me like I had asked something ridiculous. "What does that have to do with anything? This is a business dinner." "Business dinners happen during business hours," I said. "At business restaurants, not at 8 o'clock at Luminaire." "You're being paranoid," Melissa said, already looking back down at her phone. "Brandon is married. He's not interested in me like that. This is about my career." I did not respond. Experience had taught me that some people only learn lessons the hard way. Melissa and I had been dating for 8 months. We met at a charity fundraiser where she was working the event for her marketing firm, and I was there representing my family's foundation. She had been attracted to what she thought I was, a mid-level employee at a nonprofit, a guy who drove a modest Toyota, a guy who lived in a decent but unremarkable apartment. She did not know my full name was Connor Hayes Worthington. She did not know my grandfather founded Worthington Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates in the country. She did not know the foundation I work for was actually my family's $800 million charitable trust. And she definitely did not know that I ran it. I had introduced myself as Connor Hayes and left out the Worthington part. It was a test my sister Harper and I had developed after 3 previous relationships where women had suddenly become very interested once they learned about my family's money. Melissa had passed that test beautifully. At least, I thought she had. I thought she had fallen for the regular guy version of me. Now, watching her sit in my passenger seat and mentally prepare for dinner with her predatory boss, I was starting to wonder if she had just been playing a longer game. "You should drop me at my apartment," Melissa said. "I need to get ready." Brandon said to dress nice. "What time should I pick you up after dinner?" I asked. Melissa paused. "Actually, Brandon said he'd arrange a car service. No need for you to wait up." Of course he had. I dropped Melissa at her apartment building and drove to my real home. Not the modest apartment she knew about. My real home. The penthouse condo in the financial district. The place where Connor Hayes Worthington lived, not Connor Hayes the nonprofit employee. My phone rang while I was pouring myself a scotch. It was my younger sister Harper. "Connor, I just heard something interesting," she said without preamble. "About what?" "Brandon Mitchell from Castellan Marketing." I looked down at the glass in my hand. "What about him?" "He's in the middle of a nasty divorce. His wife filed last month after finding out he had been sleeping with subordinates for years. Apparently, it's going to get messy because she has evidence." I took a long drink. "How do you know this?" "His wife's lawyer is dating my friend Jessica. The legal community talks. You know that." I did know that. Harper worked in corporate law at one of the top firms in the city. She heard things most people never knew were moving beneath the surface. "Let me guess," I said. "Brandon's type is ambitious young women who think sleeping with the boss will advance their careers." Exactly. And according to Jessica's boyfriend Brandon's, pattern is always the same. Expensive dinners, promises about promotions, hotel rooms booked in the company's name. Then, when the women realize he is never leaving his wife and the promotion is never coming, they get fired for performance issues. I thought about Melissa getting ready at that exact moment for what she thought was her big, career-making dinner. "Thanks for the heads up, Harper. This is about your mystery girlfriend, isn't it? The one you still won't introduce to the family because you're playing common man?" "Maybe." "Connor, when are you going to learn? People show you who they are. You just have to pay attention." After Harper hung up, I sat in my penthouse and looked out over the city lights. Then I made a decision. If Melissa wanted to play games, I would let her. But I would also make sure she understood exactly what she was gambling away. I knew where Melissa lived, obviously, but she did not know I had helped her landlord renovate the entire building 2 years earlier through one of my family's real estate development companies. The building had security cameras in every hallway and in the parking garage. Cameras I had access to. At 7:45, I watched Melissa leave her apartment in a black dress I had never seen before. It was tight, low-cut, expensive. It was not business dinner attire. It was the kind of dress you wear when you want to be noticed. At 7:52, a black Mercedes pulled up. Brandon Mitchell got out. Not a driver, Brandon himself. He had not arranged a car service. He had picked her up personally. I watched him kiss her cheek. I watched Melissa laugh at something he said. Then I watched them drive away together. After that, I made some calls. My first call was to James Pemberton, the CEO of Castellan Marketing. James and my father had played golf together for 30 years. "Connor," James said when he answered. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need some information about one of your executives," I said. "Brandon Mitchell." There was a pause. "Is this about business or personal?" "Both. He's a liability," James said bluntly. "Good at his job, brings in clients, but his personal conduct is becoming a problem. We are documenting everything for when we have to let him go. We can't afford another lawsuit." "He is currently on a dinner date with one of his subordinates," I said. "A woman named Melissa Torres." "Jesus Christ," James muttered. "That is the third one this year. I told HR to keep an eye on him." "I have a proposition," I said. "What if I told you I could give you the documentation you need to fire Brandon without legal exposure in exchange for a favor?" "I'm listening." I laid out my plan. By the time I hung up, James was laughing. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said. "That is exactly the kind of strategic thinking that built Worthington Industries." My second call was to my private investigator, Robert Chen. Robert was a former FBI agent who handled sensitive family matters. "I need everything on Brandon Mitchell by tomorrow morning," I told him. "Financial records, phone records, every woman he has been involved with at Castellan Marketing, hotel bookings, everything." "Consider it done," Robert said. My third call was to Antoine Rousseau, the owner of Luminaire. Antoine had started as a line cook at my grandfather's country club 40 years ago. My grandfather had given him the loan that allowed him to open his own restaurant. Now, Luminaire was one of the most successful high-end restaurants in the city, and Antoine never forgot who had given him his start. Bonjour, mon ami. Antoine greeted me warmly. How can I help you? Do you have a reservation tonight for Brandon Mitchell? Yes, 8 o'clock, table 12, corner booth. Very romantic. Change it to table 6, I said, right in the center of the dining room. And Antoine, I'll be at table 7. Don't acknowledge me, but make sure their service is impeccable. I want to watch. You are up to something, Antoine said, amused. This is about a woman. It always is. Then I will make sure you have the perfect view. At 8:15, I walked into Luminaire, wearing a custom Tom Ford suit and my grandfather's Patek Philippe watch. The host recognized me immediately. Mr. Worthington, your table is ready. He led me to table 7, positioned perfectly to observe table 6. Brandon and Melissa were already seated with champagne in their glasses. From where I sat, I could see everything. Brandon was leaning in close, his hand covering Melissa's on the table. She was laughing, touching her hair and playing her part. He was playing his. Neither of them noticed me sitting 20 feet away. I ordered the tasting menu and settled in for the show. You're really special, Melissa. Brandon was saying loud enough for me to hear. Not like the other women in the office. You have real talent. Thank you, Melissa said, her voice soft and breathy. That means so much coming from you. I see big things in your future, Brandon said. Maybe even a director position. Of course, that would require you to be more flexible about your role in the company. I watched Melissa process the sentence. I watched her understand exactly what he was offering and what he expected in return. How flexible, she asked. Very flexible, Brandon said. I like to work closely with my directors, long hours, late nights, travel together to client meetings. You would essentially be my right hand. That sounds amazing. It would require certain discretion about our working relationship. Melissa nodded slowly. I understand discretion. Good, Brandon said, because I am married, obviously. But that is complicated. My wife doesn't understand my work. She doesn't understand the kind of dedication it takes to succeed in this business. It was the oldest line in the book, and Melissa was buying it like marked-down merchandise. I understand completely, she said. Then she moved her hand so their fingers were interlaced. That was when Brandon leaned across the table and kissed her. Right there in the middle of Luminaire, in front of everyone, he kissed my girlfriend. I finished my wine and waited. When the check came for Brandon's table, he pulled out his corporate credit card with a flourish. He was trying to impress Melissa with his expense account privileges. The waiter returned looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, sir, the waiter said, but this card has been declined. Brandon's face went red. That's impossible. Try it again. The waiter tried again. Same result. Let me call the company, Brandon said. He stood and moved away from the table. I watched him dial. I watched his face shift from confused to angry to panicked. James Pemberton had moved fast. When Brandon came back to the table, his swagger was completely gone. There has been some kind of mistake with the company card, he said. I'll need to use my personal card. Is everything okay? Melissa asked, suddenly concerned. Fine, Brandon said. Just fine. But his hands were shaking when he pulled out his personal credit card. That one was declined too. Because I had bought Brandon Mitchell's debt that afternoon. Every penny he owed, every credit card, his mortgage, his car loans. One phone call to the credit card companies explaining that I was now the lien holder on his outstanding balances and his accounts were frozen pending verification. I don't understand, Brandon said, sweat forming on his forehead. I need to make some calls. I stood up, left cash on my table for a bill I had not even received yet, and walked over to table 6. Evening, I said pleasantly. Melissa looked up. Her face went white. Connor, what are you doing here? Having dinner, I said. You remember me, right, Melissa? Your boyfriend. Brandon stared at me in confusion. Who the hell are you? I pulled out my business card and handed it to him. Not the simple card that said Connor Hayes Foundation Manager, the other card. The one with the family crest embossed in gold, Connor Hayes Worthington I said. Worthington Industries. Perhaps you've heard of us. Brandon read the card. I watched the color drain from his face as understanding began to dawn. Worthington, he repeated. As in, my family owns 60% of the building your company leases, I said. As in, we have significant investments in several of your clients' parent companies. As in, I just bought all of your personal debt and can call it due whenever I choose. Melissa looked back and forth between us, trying to understand what was happening. Connor, I don't understand. What's going on? What's going on, Melissa, is that you came to dinner with your married boss who promised you a promotion in exchange for sex. What's going on is that you never told him you had a boyfriend. What's going on is that I have been watching you for the past hour, letting him touch you, kiss you, and play with your hair while you discussed your career. It's not like that Melissa protested. This is about my career. No, I said, calmly. This is about you being willing to sleep with your boss to get ahead, which is your choice to make, but you should probably know who you're making that choice with. I turned to Brandon. Your company card was declined because James Pemberton suspended it an hour ago. Your personal cards were declined because I own your debt and instructed the banks to freeze your accounts. And your wife's lawyer has been very cooperative about sharing evidence of your previous affairs with subordinates. Brandon was shaking now. You can't do this. This is completely legal, I interrupted. I bought your debt on the open market. Very expensive debt, by the way. You've been living well above your means. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. I also have documentation of every woman you have harassed at Castellan Marketing, every hotel room you booked, every promise you made and broke. James Pemberton has a copy now too. You will be fired by Monday. You're destroying my life, Brandon said, his voice breaking. No, I said. You destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone sees the wreckage. Then I turned back to Melissa. You have a choice to make right now. You can stay here with Brandon and see where this leads, or you can leave with me and we can talk about what the hell just happened to us. Melissa was crying now, her makeup beginning to run. Connor, please. You're not who I thought you were. Neither are you, I said. But I guess we both learned something tonight. I didn't know you were rich, Melissa said, as if that explained everything. You lied to me. I left out some details, I said. You actively tried to cheat on me. There is a difference. Brandon tried to stand up, but his legs seemed to give out beneath him. Please, he said. You have to understand. I understand perfectly, I replied. You prey on ambitious young women. You make promises you never intend to keep. And when they realize they have been used, you fire them. That ends now. I pulled an envelope from inside my jacket and set it on the table in front of him. This is a list of every woman you have harassed at Castellan Marketing. Tomorrow morning, my foundation will be reaching out to each of them and offering legal representation and financial support if they choose to file complaints. Pro bono, of course. Brandon stared at the envelope like it was a live snake. My grandfather built Worthington Industries on the principle that you protect people who can't protect themselves, I said. I'm just following his example. Melissa reached for my hand. Connor, can we please just go somewhere and talk about this? I made a mistake. I got caught up in the idea of the promotion. I looked down at her hand touching mine, the same hand that had been holding Brandon's 20 minutes earlier. Melissa, I said, I spent 8 months being someone I'm not to see if you would love me for who I actually am. And the moment someone offered you something better, you took it. That tells me everything I need to know. But I do love you, she insisted. You love the idea of me, I said. Or maybe you just love what I can do for you. Now that you know who I really am, but you don't love me. I pulled my hand away and stepped back. Brandon's bill is paid, I said. I took care of it on my way over. You two enjoy your evening. Then I walked out of Luminaire without looking back. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my office when Harper called. Have you seen the news? She asked. What news? Brandon Mitchell was fired from Castellan Marketing. 6 women filed formal complaints. It's all over the business section. I pulled up the article on my computer. There it was. Brandon Mitchell terminated after multiple allegations of inappropriate conduct with subordinates. The article included a statement from James Pemberton about the company's zero-tolerance policy for harassment. Good, I said. And your ex-girlfriend Harper? Asked. What about her? She has been trying to reach you through every mutual contact we have. She called the foundation 3 times yesterday. Let her keep trying. You're really done with her. I thought about Melissa sitting in that restaurant, kissing her married boss while I watched from 20 feet away. I thought about how quickly she had been willing to throw away our relationship for a promised promotion. Yeah, Harper, I said. I'm done. Good, Harper replied, because I know someone I want you to meet. I leaned back in my chair. Harper. She's a public defender. She works insane hours for terrible pay, and she has no idea who our family is. Harper. Just coffee, Connor. No pressure. But I think you would like her. She's the real deal. I agreed to coffee because Harper was annoyingly persistent, and she was usually right about people. Her name was Emma Bradford. She showed up in a blazer with a coffee stain on the sleeve and files spilling out of her briefcase. She apologized for being late, then explained that she had been in court all morning, defending a kid who could not afford a decent lawyer. We talked for 2 hours. She never asked what I did for work beyond the basic answer I gave. She talked about her cases, her passion for justice, and her frustration with a system that failed people who could not afford to protect themselves. When I walked her back to her office, she smiled and said, "This was nice. We should do it again sometime." I'd like that, I said. Fair warning, though, Emma added. I'm broke. I work 80 hours a week, and I have terrible luck with relationships. My last boyfriend dumped me because I missed his birthday party for a client emergency. Sounds like he wasn't worth your time. That's what my mom said. Emma laughed. Anyway, thanks for coffee, Connor. Next one is on me. I watched her disappear into her building files, still slipping from the edge of her briefcase, completely oblivious to the fact that I could have bought the entire block she worked on. And that was exactly why I asked her to dinner. 6 months later, Emma and I were having breakfast at her tiny apartment when she looked up from her case files and said, I need to tell you something. Okay. One of my friends Googled you last week. My heart sank. And she found out you're Connor Hayes Worthington, as in Worthington Industries Connor Hayes Worthington. I set down my coffee. Emma, I can explain. Why didn't you tell me, she asked. But she did not sound angry. She sounded curious. Because I wanted you to know me first, I said. Before the money, before the name, before all the complications that come with it. Emma nodded slowly. That makes sense, actually. It does. Do you know how many guys I've dated who led with their money? Like that was the most interesting thing about them. How many? Too many, she smiled. You know what the crazy thing is? I liked you better when I thought you were just some regular guy working at a nonprofit. I am just some regular guy working at a nonprofit, who happens to be worth several $100 million. That is my family's money, I said, not mine. Connor, you run an $800 million charitable foundation. You are not exactly poor. I could not argue with that. Are we okay? I asked. Emma reached across the table and took my hand. Yeah, she said, we're okay. But you are buying breakfast from now on. And I mean the good coffee, not this cheap stuff I've been making. We got married a year later. Emma wore a simple dress from a department store, despite my mother offering to take her to Paris for a gown. We held the reception at my grandfather's country club, and Emma spent half the night talking to the waitstaff about their working conditions and union representation. My father pulled me aside during dinner. Your grandfather would have loved her, he said. I think so too. She's not impressed by the money at all, is she? Not even a little bit. Good, my father said. That's how you know she's the one. I never heard from Melissa again after that night at Luminaire. Through Harper, I heard that Melissa left Castellan Marketing shortly after Brandon was fired. She moved to another city and started over somewhere else. I hope she learned something from the experience. I hope she realized that success built on compromising who you are never really lasts. As for Brandon Mitchell, his divorce was finalized 6 months after his firing. His wife got everything. The last I heard, he was working at a small marketing firm in another state, no longer in management. The 6 women who filed complaints received settlements from Castellan Marketing and went on to successful careers at other companies. 3 of them reached out to thank me personally for making legal support available. "You didn't have to do that," one of them said. "Why did you?" "Because my grandfather taught me that you use your privilege to protect people who can't protect themselves," I told her. "Otherwise, what is the point of having it?" Looking back on that night at Luminaire, I realized I learned something important. Not about Melissa, not about Brandon, about myself. I have been testing people by hiding who I really was, thinking that was the only way to find someone genuine. But Emma taught me that the right person does not care about what you have. They care about who you are, what you stand for, how you treat people. And when you find someone like that, you hold on tight. These days, Emma and I work together sometimes. The foundation funds her public defender's office and helps them take on cases they could not afford otherwise. She still works insane hours. She still spills files everywhere. She still shows up to fancy charity events with coffee stains on her blazer. And I love her more every single day. Because she saw Connor Hayes first. And when she found out about the Worthington part, it did not change anything. That was how I knew she was real. That was how I knew I had finally found what I had been looking for all along.